Mark meets Jim Carless, the head of Experiential at bd-ntwk. Hi Jim.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Can you give us a quick summary of your career?
Yeah, my career today. I did a bit of an unorthodox degree in hotel and catering management. I did that because I didn't really get the grades in my A-levels to do business studies, which was my first choice, but the course was very similar, and by the fourth year I was effectively doing a business studies degree. I did that down at Portsmouth. During that fourth year I decided I wanted to work in marketing, didn't really know what that meant, so just wrote off a load of spec letters to all sorts of different agencies and client-side companies.
Where did you get those details from?
I got the agency ones from the ISP, predominantly, and then I just used the normal graduate resources to find head office client-side roles. I had a few interviews and I ended up working for an agency called PDP, who are now part of McCann Erickson, and actually they're now Momentum Worldwide in Manchester. From there, I was there for a couple of years. I went over to another agency in Birmingham called KLM, who are now Chosen Communications, and went my way up from an account manager through to group account director for 6 years. Worked on loads of really great brands, BCIB, Diageo, Thomson Holidays, and during that time started to get more and more exposure to events and field marketing, as it was called then. I then had a bit of a strange moment and decided that I'd give it all up and buy a pub, so I did that. I sold my house, I moved my wife and child down to Sussex, where I'm from, and I bought a pub down near the seaside, and for a couple of years that was all very interesting. I enjoyed it for about 5 minutes and then turned the business around and sold it for a profit a couple of years later. I then decided to get back into the agency game, and I spent quite a long time trying to find something that was a little bit different. And having kind of been exposed a bit to probably what was then being called Experiential, got involved with an agency called Brandwidth, who were over in Windsor and in London as well. Worked there for 7 years, ended up as MD of Brand Activation, which was the experiential agency within that group. And then just over a year ago I came to BD as head of Experiential.
So what does a head of Experiential actually mean? What
it actually means is that the actions and the outputs of the agency in terms of any live brand presentation fall under my remit. So a big part of my job is managing a business within a business, looking after a bottom line, making sure that my commercial objectives are fulfilled. It involves working very closely with the other disciplines within the agency. This is an integrated agency, so working very closely with digital, shop and mobile divisions. There's a big team of folk that I have to manage who work across different disciplines, from production through to account management, through to locations management, and everything else in the middle, staffing agency as well. And then obviously then there's a senior client role, relationship role that I fulfill as well.
And what backgrounds do you look for when you're recruiting for people in your experiential team?
That depends on the level and the area of expertise. For entry-level positions, we look for enthusiasm, some relevant experience, and the people that succeed are usually those that do really proactive approaches to us. So there's some really creative CVs through, some really interesting, different types of approaches. Somebody's CV was entirely photographic, for example, which is really interesting. As people get more senior, obviously we have an in-house recruitment team as well as using third-party agencies, and we'll be quite specific about what we need. We don't necessarily look for people who come from direct competitor agencies, we'll look much broader than that. But ultimately for me it comes down to two things. One is desire, and the other one is ambition.
And if someone's worked in-house working on events, live events,
yeah.
Is that something that you would consider?
Yeah, we have quite a few people here actually, especially in the client services and production teams that have come from an in-house agency. Sorry, I'll say that again. They've come from a client side background. The skill set is very transferable. Ultimately, we're in a business of creating brilliant ideas and creating great relationships, and I think you can do that from whatever kind of background you're from.
Okay, and what's the most important thing that you look for in a CV? Is it awards, is it initiative or well-known agencies?
It's not awards, it is initiative, that is important, and I think being able to, it's all very well writing a CV, and we see lots of really, really good CVs. Ultimately it comes down to a face-to-face meeting and an interview process, and those people that shine in that environment I think are much more employable than those that can write a really good resume. So I think it's about personality first and foremost.
What's the thing that frustrates you the most of the perception of the experiential industry or sector?
There's a few things. I think there's the two that spring to mind. One is helping clients to understand where it fits within their suite of channels they can use, and alongside that is how do they measure it and value it, which is kind of the hot topic at the moment within the discipline. And
as in, what's the return on investment?
Absolutely, yeah. So how do I know that a pound of experiential is better or worse than a pound of TV, or a pound's worth of digital, or a pound's worth of social?
And is that the head of experiential job to do that selling?
Yeah, it is. And it's to really understand the other disciplines. I mean, it's part of, the other agencies I've worked at. I've been a client service director for a digital agency. I've worked significantly in sales promotion and shopping marketing. I've been exposed to lots and lots of above the line. So I kind of understand the metrics that other disciplines are judged by. And there's a place for experiential alongside those. What you shouldn't do, and the trick is not to make a massive land grab for experiential. It's to show clients the value that it adds to their existing comms plans. The other thing I find incredibly stressful or annoys me about experiential is that it is still the nice to do thing, because the ticket price involved in a lot of experiential is quite high. So it is frustrating that clients won't necessarily listen to solutions that are not so expensive, that can also achieve some of the objectives they've set. But it's general, getting it on the agenda is the most frustrating thing.
What's your take of digital meets physical?
Well, I think that if you pare it right back, sort of experiential was the original form of social media, where the conversation was physical, and now social media, the conversation is digital. The two things are absolutely complementary. The big thing of any good experiential agent, certainly at BD, we will always have a digital element and a social element to any experiential campaign, because the conversation will begin and continue through digital mediums, albeit the focus is physical in the middle. So it's incredibly important and a really essential part.
For you, what's the best thing about agency life?
Culture. The culture of any agency probably is different to client side. And I think that being able to work across a range of different clients and campaign types and all the different elements, particularly in the makeup experiential, I think that that's the best thing for me. Culturally, it's just different, and for me, that's the key.
Are there specific courses that universities in this country offer that you would suggest people consider if they're looking to get into this space?
There's a yes and no to that. Coming from my background, any degree course I think shows that you can apply yourself for a number of years in a certain discipline and use those skills and life skills, most importantly, really at that level, to take onto your future employment. But saying that, there are certain courses, born through a very good one in event management and a kind of experiential leads as well to one, that I think that can sometimes separate candidates. Those candidates that have done a really relevant degree will probably always get slightly quicker route to my door than those that haven't.
How about people that have worked in this industry in a different discipline, and they have gone to night class, or they've kind of taught themselves after hours?
I think that's brilliant. I think that anyone that's shown the desire to get into it and has applied themselves by putting themselves through a night class or does something like that, I think that's very commendable, and certainly is in no way a barrier for them entering this industry.
So what disciplines do we offer then in experiential? From my understanding, it's account management, project management, design. What other areas can you expand into?
Well, broadly, you've got a whole creative chunk of skills. So we have experiential creative teams here who are specialists in understanding how to translate or create an idea that can then be physically delivered.
As in art directors and a copywriter?
Yeah, or before it gets to an art direction stage, a conceptual team, ideas people and creative strategists that will look at the marketing reasons for doing the activity and try and distill that into the creative brief that goes to the conceptual teams that eventually makes its way to an art director copywriter team. So that kind of creative left-hand side of the brain part is one area of skills that we use. You're right in identifying account management is a big part of our department, the biggest part of our department. Production and producers, and people that really understand how to put the show on or to put the event on. We also have people that are specialists in things like locations, so identifying the best physical places and understanding the commercial reasons why they're the best places is also another skill area. And then you also got HR, admin, and other areas that we use.
What's the future of events and experiential?
That's a really interesting question. I think the future will be firstly defining what experiential actually means. There's hundreds of different definitions of it. For me, it's quite simple. It's just the provision of a live interaction between a person and a brand. It's nothing more complicated than that. It's just a physical thing that happens when a brand and a person get together and have a conversation effectively. I think the future will see better integration of digital. I think we'll see better understanding of metrics and ROI. I don't believe that generating Facebook likes, for example, is a good measure or a sensible measure for the value of experiential, although that is how it's being used at the moment. So I think the future sees a bit more of a joined up picture with much more creative use of technology during events, before and after.
And do you see the need for a head of experiential job title in the future? Because I guess if you're looking at multi-platform brand thinking, if someone was head of brand or brand guardian, would it not be their responsibility to think about all the different medias the idea falls across?
I think potentially the job title would morph into head of experience, be that an experience in a digital space or a physical space or somewhere else. There's always going to be a need for somebody to head up business within a business. So here I head up experiential. Someone needs to make that business work commercially and deliver the right return on investment for the agency. So that role I think will always be there, but I think there will be a blurring of the lines, and I think experiential is a short-term term that will probably change to something that's a little bit more understandable.
What do people have to do to, I guess apart from a creative CV, what do people have to do creatively to stand out and be remembered when interviewing here with you?
I always ask people what the best and worst examples of experiential that they've seen recently are, and that provides the opportunity for them to answer quite creatively. I'll also ask them some slightly ridiculous questions that have no bearing on them actually getting the job, but just to try and tease out some of their personality. So I'll talk to them about a contestant on the X Factor, or I'll talk to them about something I've read in the Metro this morning. And I generally find that those people that are more creative can put more of themselves into their answers.
So having an opinion is important.
Really important. Having an opinion and having some evidence for their opinions.
In the current economic climate where things not looking so good, have you ever had the threat of redundancy before?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No, I've been fortunate that to date I personally haven't had the threat of redundancy, but it is tough out there at the moment, and all agencies I think are under increasing pressure. And redundancy, unfortunately, is part of the nature of the beast in terms of the commercial reality of business.
And what advice would you give to people that are possibly facing redundancy in the experiential sector? Is it a matter of one door closes and other opens? Or
I think you have to look at it like that. I think that there are always opportunities, albeit they might be slightly left or right field. Experiential as discipline is growing, and with that growth are other opportunities. I think those people that are unfortunate to find themselves in a position of facing redundancy or having been made redundant need to be incredibly proactive and try and secure themselves something that's attractive to them. And I think also it gives people an opportunity to look and see actually maybe we should buy a pub. Something different.
What's been your favourite account to work on in your career today?
My favourite accounts, I loved working on Sky. I was working on Sky when it was going through its massive growth spurt. It was wholesaling channels through cable as well as retail and direct through Dish, and being involved in that for 6 or 7 years was really interesting because the future was so obvious that it was multi-channel television and then some, which we're now seeing with the web and other new technologies. But being part of something like that for so long was genuinely exciting. But I worked with various automotive brands in Toyota for, again, a long time when I was at Brandwidth, and launching cars is a cool starting thing to do, and we did some really cool work. We did an orchestra of cars for Lexus, which is incredible, and then most recently at BD I've done the big show for Peugeot out in Rio, which was the launch of the 208, which was interactive projection mapping, which is another one first.
So is there an element of travelling which adds interest to the sector you work in?
Travel?
Yeah.
Not for me personally, I don't care about travel, I'd rather not travel. But discipline, because usually you're putting on events in public places, does of course open up opportunity for travel, and I think for people coming into it, I think that's quite attractive. When you've done it for 16 years, it's less attractive for someone to do.
So are there points when you have to work long hours, I guess, if you've got an event on?
Absolutely. Any agency, any discipline will involve massive peaks and troughs in terms of hours and input. Experiential is no different. In fact, it's probably slightly worse because a lot of what you do is in the evenings and at weekends, and you shouldn't come into this industry in any discipline if you're not willing to do that. And I've got mates in above the line agencies that, you know, if they're on a deadline and they can be working 40 hours without break to get a TV ad made. So it's no different. But experiential perhaps has more of a call in your time.
Yeah, it's a good bit of advice. Okay, let's move on to a quick fire round.
Okay.
Can line or D&AD pencil?
Can line, yeah.
Fruit or veg?
Veg.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Art directors or copywriters?
Copywriters.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Degree or no degree?
Doesn't matter degree.
Ant or deck?
Deck.
Retained work or pitch work?
Retained work.
Web or mobile?
Mobile web.
Independent agencies or networked agencies?
Independent networked agencies.
Outsourced production or on-site production?
On-site.
And lastly, twist or stick?
Twist.
Thank you very much.